As some people are still trickling in, I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's AI panel. The purpose of our panel discussion is to hear and learn from the talent and experiences of our panelists who offer various perspectives regarding the AI space. At the end of this discussion, we hope that our audience, you, will be better informed to make your own conclusions about the future of AI in our lives. And I will now introduce the moderator and the panel. Our moderator today is Mr. Paul Barsky, who serves as the head of the Harker Upper School and is responsible for overseeing the student and faculty experience. Mr. Barsky is particularly interested in thinking about how technology impacts the human experience and addressing the question of what it means to be fully human in a world which is experiencing technological innovation at such a rapid pace. And most recently, he is researching and writing upon the question, using a theological lens, can generative AI be envisioned as having personhood? And I will now introduce our esteemed panelists, for academic department chairs and teachers on each of the campuses to ensure a smooth, high quality, and well-articulated educational experience. This is her 26th year at Harker, and the upcoming school year is her 22nd year serving as the assistant head of school. Alex Iftemi is OpenAI's Associated General Counsel for Investigations and Security. And in that role, he focuses on addressing cybersecurity, national security, and other threats to the safe development and use of AI. Previously, he was a partner and co-chair of the crisis management practice at Morrison Foerster. And prior to that, he was a partner and co-chair of the, he was an attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice, where he served in various roles, including counselor to the Attorney General, counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, and attorney advisor in the National Security Division. He is also a graduate of Yale Law School, the University of Southern California, and the Harper School. Teng-Ming Alex Ren, with over 20 years of experience in R&D, sales, marketing, HR, and startup investment, is a prominent entrepreneur and investor, as well as the founding partner of Fellows Fund, an AI native VC built by 20-plus AI fellows, located in the San Francisco Bay Area. His extensive background and deep expertise in AI and business have been pivotal in establishing Fellows Fund as a unique venture capital firm. Alex collaborates closely with a select group of tech industry experts, or fellows, specializing in AI to strategically invest in and support early-stage companies. And Alex is also the father of Ivanka, class of 30, and Elon, class of 36. Next, we have Shiv Shivakumar, who teaches a popular computer science and data course at Stanford University. Recently, he has been experimenting with AI tools to teach the next generation of students. Previously, he was Vice President, Distinguished Entrepreneur, and the founding director of the Google Seattle Kirkland R&D Center, where he helped build a variety of products and systems. And a fun fact about Shiv is that he was the first CS student at Stanford to get a death threat for his PhD dissertation. And last but not least, we have Aniket Tamala, who is a senior at the Harker School. As well as being a USACO silver medalist and top 50th in the nation in the physics bowl, he is a USACO platinum contestant and a 4-time AD qualifier. As president of Harker's AI Club, he has been able to create a space for other students, professors, and industry experts to lecture his community, and is currently involved in running a school-wide capital competition. And now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mr. Barsky.
So today, we are here to unravel the complexities of artificial intelligence. Like many of you in the audience, I am witnessing AI's profound impact firsthand. Our panel aims to navigate this new world by shedding light on the implications and the possibilities. So let's embark on this journey together. I will be asking each panelist their individual question, and it would be great if we could keep the answers to around 2 or 3 minutes. And with that, let's begin. So, Ms. Gorgana, what excites you about AI in a school community? What do you see as role in the education of children?
I think there's a lot that excites me about education right now. The one theme that I will probably continue to go back to is I really think it has the potential to elevate elevate the kind of discussions that we can have, the kind of thought we can have. Kind of, maybe not as germane to Harker, I also think it has the power to really make education more equitable. I mean, I can think of, when I was a student and we didn't have all of these tools, and I, may not have been familiar with a particular topic or something of that nature. Of course, I would have to go to the library, research, hundreds of books if I wanted to get to the level of what I wanted to understand right now. So I think that the equity piece is important because now students who may come into a particular environment without the same level of education can with a chat with ChatGPT. I actually did that the other day, a topic I remember really being stumbled upon when I was a student that everyone else seemed to know. And I was really able to not only go into the history of this topic, how it related, when it started, those types of things. But back to essentially Harker, more in particular, again, I think will really be able to elevate the level of discussion and thought. I was reading a book recently, and I'm going to read a quote from it. The book is Literary Theory for Robots by Dennis Tenen. And he mentioned that I do think that human talent has always risen above the average. So I believe that AR represents a new average and the bar is always rising. So essentially what that tells me, and what I've already seen at Harker, is essentially it's going to force us to think in new and more interesting ways. It's intelligent, it's going to make sure that we're more intelligent. So for example, we're partnering with an AI tool right now that really does allow our students to use ChatGPT in kind of a modified form to be an extra teacher, an extra student, to essentially give different thoughts that will allow them to reply upon that. It is able to, essentially our teachers are able to put a rubric in this particular tool so that our students then not only get feedback from their teachers, but from this tool as well. Maybe they disagree with the feedback, maybe they have other thoughts, but they disagree with teachers sometimes too. But it gives them a different lens from which to understand their topic, and then they're able to talk to their students about it. The other piece that I think is really interesting about education is one of the things that we're piloting in our middle school and for a few of our teachers is that it is able to really increase how teachers are able to get feedback about their own teaching. So right now we're limited to administrators, department chairs going into teachers' classrooms, giving them feedback, saying this is how you can be a better teacher, which our teachers love that feedback. But now there's actually tools that we've been piloting where it actually really is able to analyze what's going on in the classroom. And this tool then gives our teachers, these are the kind of questions that you've been asking. If you ask this kind of question, you can go deeper, you can get better information. These are biases that you're having, that type of thing. So it's able to be with them all the time, giving them feedback in terms of how to improve upon their teaching. So there's lots of really interesting things that will happen, and I can know from the tools that we've been using, it's being updated and changed every day. So every week we're learning new and different things that we're able to do with our students.
That's great. So then the AI is bringing more equity to education across many different ways.
Correct.
And if I'm understanding correctly, also helping making our faculty more effective in the relationship with your own kids.
True. And I would also say deepening the learning for the students, because how they're able to think about the topics doesn't just come from the teachers as well. It comes from this other machine that helps them think in different ways and really elevates the conversation in a variety of ways.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Shiva, before we jump in, I got to ask, death threat?
Well, the good news is not the mafia.
Okay.
It was, the short story is that it was a very prolific researcher in CS who had about 25 papers in computer science and was about to accept a faculty offer at Cambridge. So this is in the early 90s. And then the weird thing that happened was that the web happened. And I joined grad school. And I was building a system which indexed all the papers and found that he had plagiarized all of his papers. So 25 papers he wrote was just directly copied, plagiarized from other researchers. And obviously his faculty was retracted,
yeah.
and his career was kind of destroyed. So he's not very happy about that, me and a few others. The reason I mention that is also because it seems like it's a bit similar to the moment we are in right now, isn't it? Because in the next few years, we can certainly expect a lot of different tools to come to bear that we don't even anticipate in terms of how we teach and how we sort of find large-scale problems with cheating.
Yeah. Well, let's dive a little bit into that. So how are you using ChatGPT in your classes? When did you start? And how has it impacted your teaching?
So a couple of things. So I teach the CS data course, and the good news is, as Jennifer was saying, that I can now teach richer, deeper concepts a lot faster, and I can expect students to be able to consume it. At the same time, in the last couple of years, the amount of cheating has just gone up dramatically. At Stanford, it's gone up by roughly 5x in computer science. So in the first year, we kind of were ignoring it because we figured the students are harming themselves by not spending the right time. And then in the last year, we made a much more dramatic shift towards looking for large-scale cheating and addressing that much more aggressively within the university. So that's the good news and the bad news in terms of what's done. So in terms of how I've restructured my course, and I'll tell you more about the why, there's two parts. In terms of the learning, because now I can teach much deeper concepts a lot faster, I'm actually able to introduce what are real problems in industry a lot sooner. So I make the actual projects and the problem sets that the students are doing, I tell them, hey, go use ChatGPT, it's totally fine. So half the course is about using ChatGPT and Gemini and other tools, and saying, can you learn this video faster? And then also tell them up front that the tests are going to be on paper, and you need to know how these concepts actually work. So by telling them much more up front that, hey, use these tools for the learning part of it, assessments are going to be based on paper, where you're not going to have access to these different tools. I'm making sure that they can get the benefits without having without just being lucky with GPT. So that's sort of the punchline of what I've done with my course, and this is something that a lot of the other faculty are doing at Stanford as well, and other universities as well. So the reason why I did this is, just in terms of going back a little bit, is that I took this course, this very course, as a grad student about 30 years back. So it's the same course, it's CS 145, it's a data course. I took this course about 30 plus, in the last century, let's say. And the course was amazing because it taught me the core principles on which to build the next big systems, next big companies on top. So that is incredibly exciting. At the same time, the problem is that the course has been static, and industry has sort of moved a lot more further, right? So one of the key roles in terms of goals for college and for classes is, how do you give kids the tools to get from the level they're at right now towards a much higher level? Right? And the realities are that level is just accelerating. So it's kind of the expanding universe, right? The industry and research project is going at a much faster pace. So a few years back, I was complaining to my former advisor and saying, hey, the students coming out of Stanford are not good enough in terms of being able to solve interesting, faster problems. So how do you fix that? So he asked me to come and fix it. So the key thing to take away is that now that and what the goal is going to look like, my goal is to make sure that I shift the slope so that in two ways, both in terms of the getting from the bridge, getting from this point they're at right now to where they need to be. But as part of that, the fact that students can actually use tools like GPT and Gemini to onboard onto the slope a lot faster, because it'll meet them where they're at right now. So they can ask the questions, they can understand the concepts a lot better. That is an incredibly helpful part. I can build the slope up in terms of the accelerated learning, and also point it towards what the current problems in industry research are. So AI tools overall helping on both sides in terms of onboarding as well as in terms of the path towards the research projects and industry projects you want to work on. So it's been beneficial for the onboarding and the learning, but also at the same time, I just tell people up front that, hey, at the end of the quarter, we're going to be testing you update. So they use the tools, learn, and can be assessed in the same fashion.
That's great. It's kind of like eating your cake, having your cake, eating it too, and losing weight, right? It covers all things. So, Alex, if I've got this right, as the Associate Counsel for the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, you helped identify perceived threats to our community. And before AI, what were those threats? What were they? How did we perceive them? How did you work with them?
Well, there are a lot of threats, I guess, to our community. Some of the ones that I was particularly focused on, and this is the early 2010s, terrorists' use of the internet. There was a great concern about people who wanted to do our communities harm using our own social media platforms in ways to spread their own message, and that was something that the Department of Justice and the broader government was spending a lot of time thinking about. I spent a lot of time thinking about economic espionage, particularly where it involved nation-state actors. And in the latter part of my time at DOJ, I spent a lot of time thinking about disinformation, Russian election meddling. I was one of the prosecutors who worked on a case to expose state-sponsored Russian action on our own social media platforms to spread divisive messages and to try to influence the 2018 midterm elections, in my case, following the work of the Special Counsel's Office in 2016.
So with then generative AI coming into play, has it just escalated? Has it made these threats, has it put it on steroids and made them even grander? Or are there completely different risks that you're now seeing in your work?
Well, some of them are the same and supercharged, and some of them are, I would say, quite a bit different. Maybe picking up on the last one related to disinformation, this is one of the areas where we spend a lot of time at OpenAI thinking about how can our tools be used to hone and improve the messages of criminal networks, of people who would seek to do our communities harm. And one of the very real ways in which AI tools are used in this way is they're great at perfecting a message. If you put in some thoughts and say, turn this into a persuasive narrative that will convince someone on social media, we're actually very good at doing that, right? And so you can get output from models that strike a particular tone, that can really enhance some of the narratives that people who want to develop narratives of mass persuasion or to engage in these kinds of disinformation campaigns could do. That's something we spend a lot of time thinking about. How do we prevent that? And one of the main things we're focused on as we think about how to prevent that is to make sure that our tools don't allow these kinds of messages to be put out at scale. One of the things that AI can really do is where you have one person doing something, make it seem like there are thousands of people doing that. And that's where we want to make sure we put in some breaks, some roadblocks, so that what you can do with our technology doesn't really supercharge the activities of some of these actors. There are also new threats we are really concerned about. Our models are really good teachers, and the really beneficial use cases of that we just talked about. But they're also really good teachers at how much you develop a biological agent or how much you aerosolize a pathogen. Those are questions where we want to be very thoughtful about the way in which AI can be used by people who would do us harm. And we have, for example, a preparedness team that is focused exclusively on catastrophic risks in how AI could be used and in forecasting those risks and thinking about how our current models, things like that are on the market today, could create those threats. And we're also thinking about what will the next generation of models, what will our text-to-video models, our text-to-audio models, ChatGPT 5 and 6 and 7, when those come out, what will the capabilities of those models look like, and how do we build in safety systems on the front end to make sure that our models can't be used in those harmful ways?
Okay, great. So we were talking a little bit about controlling the harms. Hope we have an opportunity to get back into more of that. So from harm to the greatest thing since the steam engine or printing press. Alex, I know you are deeply involved as an innovator and a supporter of AI. So are we at another pivot point in human civilization with AI? Alex Wren, I'm going to ask this.
Yeah, definitely. So I think so this whole innovation has been accelerated recently, right? Because of AI. And to me, I think there are three kinds of AI. So first is generation. Second is automation. The third level is actually discovery. So generation, everything about the content generation. Think about text, image, video, audio, and also code. So then those are quite mature. So after the release of Sora very soon, you're gonna see more and more content generation in videos, right? So that would be definitely new wave of the content generation. And the second, automation. Automation actually is two areas. One is in the digital world. What you do is like you learn everything you do, then you repeat use AI to automate many of the repetitive work. And so same thing happened in the physical world. So many people ignore this kind of physical world, the robotics. So actually you can learn how humans do things. So then use like imitation learning to teach robots, like humanoid robots, to do this kind of same task. And then we invest in companies, like two startups in this kind of space. Actually, one came to speak this afternoon, Chelsea Fenn, and her startup is working in this space as well. And then also the third level, discovery, everything about the discovery, science discovery, hard coding. And so like this afternoon, another speaker also graduated from Harker, Namrata, and her company, Diffus Bio, is working on building a model, training a model to into the molecular design. So that's our portfolio company as well. So what I see is like this new generation with this kind of innovations, and you guys are lucky as the kids here, so you're gonna learn more and more and to disrupt many space.
Great. So given the different elements that we have, the creation and the impact of generative AI, and as I understand it, you're also the proud parent of two Harker students. What worries you about the world that they are coming into? The other Alex was pointing out some of the concerns that he was having, but for you in your role, what do you think about?
Yeah, that's for sure, thank you. So I actually agree with Alex, and previously mentioned disinformation, misinformation, and because today's AI use more interactive way to communicate with humans. And easily, kids are immature to involve into this kind of conversations, and that's my concern for the future of social media. Like you think about you chat with those AI agent chatbots, they're really good at being your companion and learn everything you do. Like should maybe guide you to some wrong direction, right? So that's kind of my biggest concern. So I think at the same time, the social media, next generation of social media, probably we need to, basically, set up this value system to guide the AI to, for the right direction, right? Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing to me when I introduce this kind of AI capabilities to my kids.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that perspective. Annika, you're almost done. We've got, what, 6 more weeks before we go on to the senior trip.
30 days, right?
How many?
I'm counting them.
And then we've got commencement. So congratulations, first of all, on all of your work to date. And you and I had a chance to have a discussion the other day about the different approaches that you are seeing in kids in your peer group, how they are adapting AI. And I think if I've got the terms right, you explained it as starters and full outs.
Yeah.
Can you articulate for the audience what those are? What they are?
Okay. So imagine, or put yourself in the shoes of a high school junior. It's 9 p.m. and you got an English essay due at 12 p.m. You got 3 options for writing that essay. One, you can not use ChatGPT, bang it out, and you'll probably get like an 80 because it's pretty bad. Another way you can do it is what Mr. Bryce was describing as a full out, where you put in the prompt, you basically just copy paste the essay, maybe like rewrite a few sentences, change around the paragraphs so like your teacher won't immediately think it's been ChatGPT. Obviously, that's not great. You know, you didn't write the essay, you didn't really learn anything. And the last one, the start out, is where you put in the prompt, yeah, but you just ask for like a thesis statement or a few ideas, and you kind of write your own essay from there, adding your own thoughts, your own quotes, maybe asking ChatGPT a few questions along the way. But yeah, I mean, personally, I would, and many of my friends would consider themselves start outs. There have been times where I've known people who ChatGPT a whole essay. I'm not gonna name names. Yeah.
And then, would you say that when you are using it as a tool, actually it becomes more of a collaboration device than actually a tool when you're using it?
I would both agree and disagree with that.
Okay, good.
Obviously, you know, if it's 10 p.m., your teacher's not going to like immediately respond to your question. So ChatGPT could be a great way to like ask, is this a quote I should use or something like that. But the flip side I would bring up is that it kind of encourages students to not talk to their teachers as much as one would do without it. For example, me personally, I was pretty bad at going to office hours in 9th and 10th grade.
Okay.
And like I was really scared of talking to my teachers, asking for help. And I feel like if I had ChatGPT, I wouldn't have been forced to like eventually overcome that and be more confident with myself. And yeah, I mean, I feel like AI might be encouraging students to be more solitary, honestly.
More solitary, interesting, okay,
Which
great.
is something I feel very sad about.
Great, thank you. We may have an opportunity to go back to that notion of solitary, but it wraps us back around then to Ms. Gorgano. Is there a downside that you are seeing as far as AI? And maybe part of it is, should teachers be afraid of losing their jobs? Because now they've got this brilliant tutorial, one-to-one tutorial.
Obviously, the way we have to think about education is different. I don't think, me personally, maybe I'll be proved wrong in 50 to 100 years, that I'll ever replace education in the way of needing teachers. I think we all saw over COVID that we had information, but without the benefit of having the teacher with whom you could speak with, without having the benefit of speaking with a group of students who could really elevate your thinking, we saw that the thinking and the learning wasn't as deep. I always say one of the greatest benefits of coming to a Harker education is because the level of students and teachers that you're able to interact with, and I think that's always going to be a big part of education. I think even if you go to the 4th and 5th centuries BCs, what was education? It was speaking with sophists about learning and seeking truth, and that's still what we're doing as a community. It's not something that can be replaced with technology. As I mentioned, we are using one particular tool quite a bit as it relates to AI. Even the CEO has mentioned, you know, it's not a replacement for a teacher. It is an augmentation to build upon it. Now again, do teachers have to rethink how they're doing some things? Yes, now we have this powerful tool upon which to build. How can we really leverage that tool? It's always going to take some thinking as a teacher, just like it does now with the old-fashioned lesson. What are my goals? How do I use this tool to get there? And as we're having teachers pilot with a number of tools, that's what they're finding. That actually, in a good way, they even have to be clear about what their goals are and what they want the students to come out with. Because if they're working with this machine to say what kind of prompts, what kind of questions to ask the students to help them learn, they have to be even clearer about what they're expecting and what they want the students to come out of. So it really does, it is going to change a little bit about how we teach, and that's one of the things we're doing. We had a professional development day in February, and 5 of our sessions were teachers sharing what they had learned about this tool. Like I said, it continues to change on a weekly basis. And sometimes you try things and you're like, wow, that didn't work very well. Actually, the way I use these prompts, it gave the students worse answers. It didn't further the progress. So we as a community continually have to share with one another our success stories, what we're really doing to leverage this acceleration of the thought process that I truly believe that AI has the potential of doing with education.
So it impacts the professional development that we're doing here at Harker. And I'm curious, you've just finished the hiring season here. Has it impacted hiring, either the logistics of it or what you're looking for in teachers?
I would say, just like with any technology, I think if I went into hiring and only hired people with deep knowledge of AI, I probably wouldn't get that far because it's an evolving technology. So none of us are experts on this. We're all learning on the go. So I think what we'll continue to have to look for in teachers are ones with a growth mindset, with a love of learning, with ones who, really want to embrace this. We actually did, hire some new librarians, to the Harker School. That's a place where obviously information is key. And when we hire that level of faculty, we have to make sure that they are embracing, at least learning about this new way of accessing information and seeing where it can go. So I think that's the key, this openness and this growth mindset.
Great. So talking about educators, now let's shift to Shiva and talk about the kids. So the young adults that you're seeing in your class, what skills have you seen that is going to set them up for success now and maybe for in 2 years? And you touched on a little bit before, but I want to drive into, what are some specific skills you hope that kids coming to your class would come with from high school, and that maybe do you see that changing in a couple of years because of AI?
So I think the core skills don't change. So let me talk through some examples here. So in the class that I teach, I've been teaching this class for the last 7 years, and it's about 300 students in the class. And I noticed that typically that the top 25% of the class is amazingly good. They're like really good. These are the kind of folks that you want to invest in, right? And then unfortunately the bottom 25% is really bad. And I was kind of surprised at how bad some of the students were. And so I started diving into this a bit more in the last couple of years. So let me just take some specific examples. So one was, let me start with a bad example. So this is a student who had a 40% in the midterm, had a 40% in the finals, and was struggling to pass the course. And so I sort of spent some more time with the student, and currently on paper, the student was incredibly good. Had gone to some of the top schools in California, had won a lot of the major awards in all these science fairs, but was really struggling in college. By contrast, as other kid who, and I don't call them kids, so this other kid who was from this small town close to El Paso, and did not have a computer science background, and learned all of his computer science and coding. I never written code before in his life. Learned all of his coding once he came to undergrad, and was in a completely different trajectory. Right? So it's not that the base of the first student was actually much higher on paper. On the other hand, the trajectory of this other kid was just much, much higher. Right? So in terms of he was getting like 95% in the midterms and finals for the same test. So I think it gets back to what Mr. Gano was just saying, right? It comes back to growth mindset. So the pace matters, but the rate at which students are willing to learn new ideas, new concepts, adapt, is going to matter a lot more, because the set of tools, infrastructure is going to keep changing, going to keep improving. So I don't think there's one set of tools that I would say, you got to know this to you actually get better, but just the ability to learn on the fly is going to matter a lot more, especially in the next few years.
Great. So having a very nimble, agile mind that can pivot to what we get and what's presented. That's great. Thank you. Alex, you and I just briefly had the chance to talk about what you see as far as trends, as far as regulation and AI. Could you speak a little bit about what you are seeing, or maybe what you hope to see, and what models would work and not work, do you think?
Sure. I think we're in a place of evolution when it comes to regulation. No country, certainly not the United States, has figured out what we want AI regulation to look like. I'll start by saying that, AI is a tool, and it doesn't fundamentally change our laws. There are a lot of laws that apply in the AI context, and you don't need new laws in order to address those novel uses, because we've got privacy laws, we've got criminal laws, and they apply even in cases where you are using an AI tool like ChatGPT, just like they would apply to your use of a word processor in furtherance of activities that we want to regulate. At the same time, there are things that are unique about AI, large language models, that we need to get right. And the United States is taking some steps towards that. We've got the executive order that was published by the Biden administration that imposes a number of restrictions. There are also voluntary commitments that many of the large developers of AI models have committed to. We see laws like the AI Act in the European Union. These are focused largely on how do we build these models, how do we train these models, the issues around training data that go into them, and also in some cases the ways in which, and context in which these models can be used. But one of the things that I think is really important is to make sure that we not let the laws get out ahead of the technology, because then we risk having laws that don't really apply to the things that we are building. And so it's important to have a dialogue and to really make sure that the laws we're building are fit for purpose for the actual technology that is out there. And that technology is still evolving very rapidly. And one of the things that has been exciting about being in this field for the last few months, and I think will be the same for the foreseeable future, is that we're engaged in a lot of these kinds of conversations with government. Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, has been very vocal about the fact that he wants to be regulated. He believes there is a need for this kind of regulation, and that means engaging with government stakeholders on what those regulations should be. And I think what you will see over the next few months and years is a continued dialogue about, like, where are the places where we really need regulation, where are the places where our current laws aren't sufficient, and finding ways to build those regulations in those contexts.
Great, thank you. Alex, there's much hyper buzz or just fear about AI becoming autonomous units that will be able to think on their own and be able to do things that the creators had not intended, right? You hear that that template of you ask a computer to, or AI to make paper clips, and it destroys the earth just making paper clips and everything around it. So what is your vision about, or possibility of this happening, and how do we control it?
I think we often receive these questions. The big breakthrough of AI is actually due to the huge data of internet, right? So everything we learn today is because of there are a ton of data. We wrote those articles in the last 3,000, 5,000 years. So then we learn those ways to write articles, and then we actually can do the content generation. There are tons of images online, so that's the reason we're able to generate images and videos, right? So, I believe so. This technological maturity of those things. But the first step of AI is actually the repetitive. So to automate those kind of repetitive works, like something we don't want to do, right? So so if you have a topic about the email, you wanna actually AI to finish the article, right? So that's something we rather to have AI to do, and especially like a recent development in robotics. So you can see what they focus on is a home service, like a cleaning and cooking. Right? So that would be the first step. So and then AI, these AI, they're not beyond the human's intelligence. They can do this in a big scope and a massive scale, but not this deep level knowledge than us. Right? So in the future maybe, but not in the near future. So that's what I mean. And then also. The next step, you think about the next step of AI is really about the actions, the action model. So think about what I mean previously, like content generation. The next actions, like we need to collect a ton of data, how humans do things. So then teach robots and AI to do those things as well. And in that case, we don't have much action data. So we don't know. We don't know how to figure people do things, and there don't have much action data. So in order for the big content, OpenAI, other content to train a better model, so you basically you need to collect a ton of action data. So to your question, I think if we don't have those things, those data to guide AI, they cannot disrupt us, right? So that's what I mean.
Okay, so I'm going to hold you to that. Amica, you talked about earlier about that in 9th and 10th grade, you learned the importance of going to the teacher and advocating for yourself and having that give and take. With AI, perhaps it changes that dynamic. Can you say a little bit more about that? And do you think that there is a way of taking the best of both worlds, and what do you think that would look like?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, my biggest concern was just that students wouldn't learn to talk to their teachers and be more social, I guess. My 9th grade was online, so I especially had that pretty bad. But I guess in a perfect world, and this kind of brings up something I wanted to ask Mr. Argano, which was, how do you see teachers taking advantage of AI in their own classrooms, personally? Because in a perfect world, the teacher would be able to tell you exactly where you can use ChatGPT and Dolly and where you couldn't. But as I'm graduating, I haven't really seen that. I'm sure in 5 years that'll happen. But where do you see teachers putting AI into the curriculum?
So, as I mentioned, we've been using a tool that we've been piloting with probably a couple of handfuls of teachers, and all the teachers have access. So, we may have not seen it in all of the classes quite yet. There are a lot of robust things that the teachers are doing. It's not necessarily changing the curriculum per se, but it's changing how we're teaching and how we're discussing. So, for example, one of the things that I know is happening in some of the English classes is that students are writing papers. Of course, one teacher, oftentimes they'll talk to students one-on-one and give them feedback, but you can only do that one student at a time. So they'll say, okay, I'm going to talk to one student, and then everyone else put your paper or your response into this tool that we have, and it then gives them feedback. And then when the teacher is talking to the student about their paper, not only can they discuss feedback from the teacher, but what did the machine say as well. And so we're actually doing that. Interestingly enough, probably more teachers in the lower school are doing pieces of that nature. So hopefully, kind of putting some of the things that we're talking about together, it'll help not only our teachers, but our students as they grow up figure out how to use these tools for purposes that really help their learning. So that's just one of the examples, and something that I mentioned earlier was it's really powerful about this tool. And like I said, it's changing every day. So next week and a year it could be different, but the teachers can actually put in a rubric of what to give the students feedback for. Because of course, if a student puts in a paper, whether it be English English or history, the feedback's going to look different in 4th grade and 8th grade in a junior year, and particularly on assignment. So we can actually give really specific feedback in that way. So right now we're piloting it with a number of teachers. We're sharing that knowledge with a lot of the teachers, and each year I think the students will see that more and more. Like I said, all the teachers now by the end of the year all have accounts, and we'll be seeing that much more next year.
Great. I love the notion, the insights of this ideas of collaboration, of augmenting, of bringing greater equality and resources to more people as we dive deeper into AI. And what I think this calls us to do is make sure that we continue to bring this dialogue and collaboration and for responsible AI development in the next years and generations. And my many thanks to our wonderful, wonderful panelists. Can we thank them? And thank you for all of your active work in a variety of different ways in which society integrates AI. And let's shape a future where AI enhances and strengthens our community. So thank you very much. And I don't know, am I dismissing Ella, or am I turning it over to you?
Thank you so much to our wonderful moderator, Mr. Barsky, as well as all of our panelists for being on the panel today and sharing their unique insights. Just a couple brief notes before we dismiss everyone to lunch. The first is that due to the rainy weather, just a reminder that lunch for everyone will be in Manzanita Hall, and it's from 12 to 1 p.m. And then in addition, we also have the Science Magic Show with Jordan reading. So if you're interested in seeing that, please head to the Zhang Gymnasium at 12:30. And with that, let's give another big round of applause to all our